Imagine walking into the design center Linz. 28 5 days. That is all the time separating Alex Eala from a reality that would test the composure of even the most seasoned professional. A 28-player field. 2 former champions somewhere in that draw. Indoor red clay beneath her feet for the first time in 2026. And the quiet, ever-present weight of 115 million people back home, each of them expecting every single point to mean something. This is not a hypothetical. This is her week. The WTA 500 Upper Austria Ladies Linz Open doesn't simply feature defending champion Ekaterina Alexandrova and past champion Jelena Ostapenko. It features a 20-year-old Filipino, projected as the 7th seed, who has not played a single clay match this entire season. And what she has been posting from Mallorca this week tells you everything about how she intends to meet that challenge head-on. 7 days ago, Eala was still processing the end of her Miami run, a campaign that pushed her to a career-high ranking and announced her, loudly and unmistakably, as a legitimate force on the WTA Tour. Now, training footage emerging from the Rafa Nadal Academy shows her locked into 14-ball rallies on indoor red clay, the identical surface waiting for her in Austria. The transition from hard court heartbreak to clay court preparation took less than a week. The field she is walking into has absolutely no interest in making that transition comfortable. The 2026 Linz draw reads like a gauntlet engineered to pressure test every layer of a young player's composure. Ekaterina Alexandrova, world number 13 and defending champion, returns to the courts she dominated 12 months ago, carrying an intimate familiarity with every corner of this tournament. Jelena Ostapenko, ranked 23 and Linz champion in 2017, brings the kind of explosive, high-variance power game capable of dismantling an opponent's rhythm before the first set has even found its footing. Emma Raducanu's name had been on the entry list, briefly igniting breathless anticipation about a generational showdown. Her confirmed withdrawal today, due to ongoing recovery from a viral illness, removed that particular headline from the equation. But make no mistake, her absence does not soften this field. It simply clears one storyline and leaves all the substance completely intact. 2 former champions on a surface they have each conquered before. A 28-player draw packed with experienced clay court operators. And at the center of it all, a projected 7th seed whose last competitive match on any surface ended with a scoreline she would rather leave behind. This is not a warm-up event. This is a WTA 500 where ranking points carry genuine weight, where the draw ceremony on April 5th could place Eala face-to-face with a former champion as early as the second round, and where the surface itself becomes an opponent in its own right. The entry list confirms what analysts have been flagging since mid-March. This is one of the most loaded WTA 500 fields of the spring clay season. Alexandrova anchors the draw as top seed and defending title holder. Ostapenko holds a seeded position with her name already etched into Linz history. Eala, projected 7th despite a current ranking of 45, enters a bracket where any realistic path to the quarterfinals almost certainly runs through a player with deep clay pedigree and nothing to prove on the surface. There is nowhere to hide. The structure of this tournament guarantees it. Now consider the position of every player who is to face her. Alexandrova and Ostapenko carry experience and surface mastery into every match, but neither of them carries an entire nation. Neither of them has training footage circulating across Filipino media this week, dissected frame by millions of fans scanning for signs that their champion is ready. Neither of them knows what it feels like to have ABS-CBN, One Sports, and the Manila Bulletin tracking every practice session as though it were a quarterfinal. The preparation itself speaks to intention. Verified footage from the Rafa Nadal Academy this week shows Eala drilling on indoor red clay, the exact surface, the exact conditions she will compete on in Linz. The rallies are long, physical, and deliberate. She is not guessing at what clay demands of her. She is engineering her adjustment in real time, on the right surface, under the guidance of an academy that has produced some of the greatest clay court tennis the sport has ever seen. This is targeted, surgical preparation for a specific challenge. Monday, recovering from Miami. Wednesday, full clay sessions in Mallorca. Sunday, the draw ceremony in Linz. That timeline compresses what would normally be weeks of surface adjustment into a matter of days. And that compression is not an accident. It is a choice. It is a statement. Filipino social media understood the urgency of this moment before any analyst did. In the past week alone, hashtags combining Pinoy pride and Alex Eala surged across X and Instagram, with major Philippine outlets declaring that Clay was loading and rallying fans to flood comment sections with support. The energy surrounding her is not casual or incidental. It is organized. It is building. And in 5 days, it meets the court. This is not just fandom. This is something deeper, something rooted in belief that has been building for a long time. Every Filipino tennis fan watching those training reels understands what is actually at stake in Linz. This is not simply about one tournament on one surface. This is about proving that the hard court breakthrough was not a moment, that the young woman who defeated Coco Gauff and pushed deep into WTA 1000 draws can do it on clay, too. And here is what makes this anticipation feel earned rather than premature. The pattern is already there. WTA 125 titles came first, then WTA 250 breakthroughs, then deep runs at Indian Wells and Miami, with victories over top 20 opponents along the way. Each level arrived faster than the one before it. Every surface transition, every step up in tournament grade, followed the same arc. Doubt, preparation, then execution that silenced the doubt. Linz is simply the next data point in a trajectory that has consistently rewarded those who believed early. The fans who tracked every match, shared every highlight, and defended her potential in comment sections full of skeptics, they recognized this pattern before the rankings confirmed it. The entry list at Linz is the WTA catching up to what those fans already knew. Alex Eala belongs in these fields. The WTA's own tournament coverage framed the entry list with unmistakable clarity. Past champions Alexandrova and Ostapenko lead the Linz field, with Eala set to make her debut. That phrasing is not accidental. Editorial teams select which names anchor event previews based on drawing power, narrative weight, and audience demand. Placing a 20-year-old's debut alongside proven champions with Grand Slam titles and years of clay court dominance reflects a deliberate calculation about who moves the needle for global viewership. The governing body of women's tennis is communicating something in its own language, that this young Filipino star is now a headliner. Not a curiosity. Not a developmental prospect. A name that sells tournaments. When the institution that runs the sport places you in the same sentence as defending champions, the debate about whether you belong shifts permanently. Linz does not exist in isolation either. It sits at the entrance of the European clay court corridor, the stretch of tournaments that flows directly into Stuttgart, Madrid, Rome, and ultimately Roland Garros. Every point Eala earns on the red clay of Austria feeds directly into her ranking heading into the most prestigious clay swing in the sport. A quarterfinal appearance in Linz could stabilize her inside the top 40. A semifinal could push her back toward the career-high territory she occupied just 2 weeks ago. But the significance reaches beyond ranking mathematics. Over 115 million Filipinos represent one of the fastest-growing tennis audiences in all of Asia, and they are watching this clay court debut as something close to a referendum. Proof of whether their champion can conquer the one surface that has historically defined European tennis supremacy. Tournament directors from Stuttgart to Paris are monitoring the viewership numbers Eala generates, because those numbers translate into sponsorship value, broadcast deals, and ticket demand. The next 6 weeks, from Linz through Madrid, will determine whether Eala's 2026 season is remembered as a hard court spike or as the opening movement of an all-surface ascension. The clay answers everything. 16 days ago, Eala walked off the court in Miami after a 0-6, 2-6 fourth-round loss to Karolina Machova. It was the heaviest defeat of her entire hard court swing, a stark, humbling reminder that the gap between beating top 20 players and consistently competing with the elite remains real. She had entered that match on the back of 3 consecutive wins, including a gutsy 3-set comeback against Laura Siegemund. The loss cost her 16 ranking spots. Her response came not through excuses or silence. In a post-match setting, she offered one phrase that captured everything about who she is at 20 years old. I make it a point to always be grateful for what you have. And within days, she was back at the Nadal Academy, drilling on clay, converting the sting of that defeat into fuel for the next chapter. The footage from Mallorca is not a statement made in words. It is a statement made in work. A 0-6, 2-6 loss in Miami. Training reels on indoor red clay within the week. A WTA 500 entry list featuring 2 former Linz champions. An entire nation flooding social media with pride and anticipation. And at the center of all of it, a 20-year-old who responded to her worst result of the season by choosing gratitude and then showing up at one of the world's premier tennis academies to prepare for the hardest surface transition of her career. Alex Eala is not walking into Linz hoping to survive. She is walking in with the preparation, the momentum, and the backing of a nation to make this clay court debut a statement that resonates from Austria all the way to Roland Garros. Can she shock Alexandrova and Ostapenko on their own surface and reach the Linz quarterfinals? Or will the clay veterans prove that experience on red dirt still outweighs fearless ambition? Drop your prediction below. If you have been following Eala's rise from the early rounds, you already know how quickly this story moves. Linz starts April 6th. Stuttgart follows. Madrid is right behind it. The clay chapter is unfolding in real time, and every week brings a new test. Subscribe now because the next update from Linz could be the one that changes the entire conversation, and you do not want to hear about it secondhand.